Robotic vacuum cleaners have really made some major advancements over the past several years. However, some frustrations remain, whether it's getting a notification that your robotic vacuum cleaner is stuck, or cleaning out the dustbin to realize that it's sucked up lots of liquid and endless hair wraps. While robotic vacuum cleaners are super convenient, they can still be a little frustrating. In this video, I'll be partnering with Narwal. With Prime Day just around the corner and tons of discounts across brands, I wanted to put together a flagship robot vacuum comparison, especially to see how they handle obstacle avoidance, which is something people really care about these days. Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I want to focus on here is navigation and obstacle avoidance. There's nothing worse than being away from home, getting a notification saying that the main brush is wrapped and the vacuuming has stopped. By now, these vacuum cleaners should be smart enough that you don't have to babysit them. Let's take a look at the tech in each of the vacuums that's being used for the obstacle avoidance. Narwal uses the Twin AI Dodge obstacle system. It actually has two high-definition cameras in front of the machine, and it's the only vacuum that I know of with two AI chips to identify and avoid over 120 different types of obstacles. The Dreame X40 Ultra uses an AI camera and 3D structured light to avoid about 120 different obstacles as well. The Roborock S8 Max Ultra uses 3D structured light and reactive obstacle avoidance to avoid obstacles. First up, I wanted to see how each of these vacuums would react in a room full of obstacles, so I've placed some really common obstacles for my household: a sock, a couple of shoes, and a charge cable, just to see how these would fare. In this test, the Narwal vacuum was able to avoid each of the objects, including the charge cable, and it even identified them and labeled them on the map. It had no issues with common objects like shoes and socks, and was even able to avoid these small blocks. The Dreame actually did a pretty great job avoiding most of the obstacles. The only thing that it really had trouble with was the charge cable. That being said, the Dreame was the only vacuum cleaner in this test that wasn't able to overcome that obstacle and actually stopped and had to be adjusted before it could restart. The Roborock actually did a decent job with the most common objects like shoes, but really struggled with the charge cable, and it didn't even recognize or notice that there were blocks in front of it, just kind of pushed those out of the way. Seeing how a few of these vacuum cleaners struggled with the charge cable, I kind of wanted to just give them a very simple test of putting a charge cable on the floor to see how they would react. This can be super important if you don't want the robot to accidentally eat a stray computer cable and it drag your entire PC to its doom. The Narwal vacuum approached the cable, identified it as a charge cable, and was able to hug very closely to the edge of the cable, giving the most thorough clean. The Dreame identified the cable but took a more cautious approach, leaving plenty of space between the vacuum cleaner and the cable, making for a slightly less thorough clean. The Roborock never noticed the cable and just kind of plowed through it, dragging it along as it cleaned. In a house with 3 children and pets, toys and building blocks are definitely another thing that commonly get left out. So I wanted to see how these vacuums would be able to handle different toys. Both the Narwal and the Dreame did a great job of recognizing each of the toys, and they also did a great job of sticking very close to the edge of each of the objects. The Roborock once again didn't recognize the objects and actually dragged the toys all the way back to the base station. When it comes to navigating around furniture like table and chair legs, all of these vacuum cleaners actually did a pretty good job. You can see here that the Narwal vacuum identified the chair leg and was able to hug closely around the entire edge of the chair leg. The Dreame vacuum cleaner was also able to do the same thing, making sure to hug tightly around the entire edge of the chair leg, getting a nice thorough clean. And the Roborock actually did a pretty good job here identifying the chair leg and getting a good close clean. I think it's pretty clear that the Narwal and the Dreame have pretty advanced obstacle avoidance systems, with maybe the Narwal edging out the Dreame in the test that I performed. I really liked how the Narwal Freo Z Ultra offers particularly precise cable level obstacle avoidance, which is one of the more common obstacles in homes. But I also wanted to see how these could tackle different types of messes, because another frustration that I have with vacuum cleaners is when they suck up wet spills, they should be smart enough to know the difference between a liquid spill and a dry mess. For this test, I set up some spilled milk and crushed goldfish crackers, and I was super impressed with the Narwal vacuum. In the Freo Mind mode, this was able to recognize the difference between the dry and wet messes thanks again to that dual AI chip system. When it encountered the dry mess, it boosted the suction power, and when it encountered the wet mess, it retracted the side arm, lifted the main brush, and turned off the vacuum cleaner. That way it didn't suck up any of the moisture into the vacuum cleaner, preventing it from making an even bigger mess. What I really liked here is after it made the initial pass, it returned to the base station to clean the mop pads. It detected that the floor wasn't adequately clean, and then it returned back to the mess 3 times before it determined that the mess was completely clean. In the Clean Genius mode, the Dreame actually did a pretty good job of cleaning up both of the messes. However, this was not able to determine the difference between the wet and dry messes, and because it didn't turn off the vacuum, then some of that moisture was sucked into the dustbin. I also noticed that after the initial pass, this just went to the base station and it was finished. When I checked the main brush and the dustbin, you could definitely see where some milk had been sucked up into the dustbin. It is worth noting here that if you know you have a large spill to clean up, you can turn the Dreame mode to mop only, and it will lift the main brush and turn off the vacuum to avoid sucking up liquid into the dustbin. The Roborock in Smart Plan mode didn't make any adjustments to the cleaning whatsoever. It just went to work in mop and vacuum mode, which made the biggest mess inside the machine, as most of the liquid went directly into the dustbin. When it comes to this test, I think it's clear that the Narwal vacuum handled this mess in the smartest way, and I think that's really where the dual AI chips stand out. Finally, I wanted to see how these vacuums would handle hair, as hair wraps is another common issue with most vacuum cleaners. The center brush on the Narwal is attached on one side and floats on the other. While the Narwal cleans the floor, it forces the hair to the side of the brush that is floating, and then it's able to be sucked directly into the dustbin. After cleaning up all the hair here, the Narwal was the only vacuum cleaner that was totally clear of hair. The Dreame vacuum cleaner with the stock brush that the machine came with didn't do the best job. It's worth noting here that Dreame does offer the tri-cut brush system, which does an excellent job at eliminating hair wraps by literally cutting through the hair as it cleans. That is an additional charge and did not come with the vacuum. The Roborock was also wrapped with hair at the end of the test. I did notice that the hair was trying to work its way to one end of the brush, but since that end of the brush was attached, there was really nowhere for the hair to go, which meant that I did have to manually detangle the brushes. When it comes to the hair wrap test here, I think the Narwal did the best job with the stock brushes that came with the system. Overall, I have to say that the Narwal Freo Z Ultra was the smartest and most efficient vacuum cleaner out of the 3 that were tested here. With advanced obstacle avoidance, stain recognition, and effective zero tangle technology, the Freo Z Ultra would definitely be my pick out of these 3. Of course, you'll have to make the decision for yourself which one of these 3 suits your needs best. I'll be sure to leave links in the description to all of these vacuum cleaners so you can find out more information and purchase one for yourself. That about wraps it up for this video. Thanks guys for watching. Be blessed. I'll see you in the next one.